Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leibella Ralston. I'm also known as Mommy Lay on the internet. Together with Faber-Castell USA and Michael Stores, we bring you these fun classes. And today's class, we're going to be doing a little bit of modern lettering. And we are going to be using a pencil. Yes, pencil is not just for sketches or monochromatic illustrations. We can also use pencil to practice our modern lettering. So before I get started with the class, I'd love to say hello to everybody and see where everyone is from. We have a lot of you beautiful friends joining in. So we have Christy from Florida. We have Boss Queen EJ from South Carolina. Hi, Jess. New Mexico. Hello. Hi, Mary. Hello, Mel. Hello, Tina. Hello, Chloe. Hello, everybody. We have friends from New York. Hi, Kim. Hi, Manette. Hello, Emma. Oh my God, it's going so fast. We have all of us joining in. Hello, hello, hello. Super happy and excited that you guys are joining in today. All right. So for today's class, like what I've mentioned, I'll be using a graphite pencil. And the graphite pencil of my choice today is the Castell 9000 in jumbo. Just to let you guys know, Faber-Castell is the world's actually oldest pencil manufacturer. It was founded in 1761. Isn't that crazy? 1761. That's a long, long time ago. I am choosing the 8B because it's going to be very black and it's also very soft. So if you have something, an HB, that's okay. Also, whatever pencil you have in there, it's going to work. But I love to use the jumbo of the Faber-Castell pencil because it has a larger lead, of course. It also is more comfortable to hold. This is a personal, of course, personal choice. We're all different. Some people like it much more thinner. I personally love it. It's a little thicker. It's easier to hold and also less cramping, especially if you practiced for a very long time. And then the 8B is because it is soft and it's also very black. So you can see it and the camera can pick it up very well. And while we do the classes, I'm going to look at the chat section so that just in case you have any questions. And then we also have the Faber-Castell USA team joining in. So if you have any questions, we'll be able to assist you in the chat section for some of your questions. And so, all right. Here we go. For some of the admin questions, Jimena can help you with that. So if you can message her directly, she'll be able to reach out to you and give you, help you with your question. All right. So I am going to turn my camera off so we can see the whole screen. Here we go. All right. So modern lettering, I think it's very important to talk about handwriting versus hand lettering. This is becoming an issue lately. In some of my social media posts, I always get comments like, that is not hand lettering, that is printing. You know, I guess in Europe, it's not, when you're writing in print and not in script, it's not called handwriting. So there's many different terms, and you're going to hear a lot of terms like modern calligraphy or calligraphy, hand lettering, brush lettering, and all that. So when we say hand lettering in general, this is the art of drawing your letters. And calligraphy, the old calligraphy style, was created for the ease and to make writing much more faster than printing. For example, I will write my name. This is still handwriting, but in a calligraphy form. But of course, I'm using a pencil. Some people will call it also script. You know, so there's a whole lot of terms floating around on the internet, and it's easy to get overwhelmed with that. But I think the most important thing to remember is that when you are hand lettering, this is the art of drawing your letters. And also, I love explaining this by showing you how it is. So when we can say hand lettering, This is also called printing. But as soon as you take your time and start drawing each letter, and I call it drawing it one stroke at a time. This is me drawing my letters now. See the difference between my handwriting in here? This is my handwriting. And this is my hand lettering. Notice how I'm doing it one stroke at a time. I'm being mindful, and I'm also lifting my pencil from the paper. That is one way I like to differentiate that. So when I write, I would not lift the pencil from the paper. And that would confuse me. I always do this. Am I the only one who is always confused with connecting my W to my letter R? Like that. All right. So hand lettering is what we're going to do today and not handwriting. All right. The art of drawing your letters. Here are some of the basic strokes. Speaking of strokes, these are the strokes that are very important. But first, before we get started with that, let's talk about our pencil. Now, you've seen me doing the handwriting and the hand lettering explanation here. If you have a pointy tip in your pencil, and if you just sharpen it, then you're going to have it, maybe it looks like this, sharp. We're going to have to fix that first. What we want is to have a little bit of a flat side in our pencil, even if you're using the thin one. Let's start writing first, just until we can have a slightly flat. I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up or not, but we just have to lose that super pointy tip. All right, so just kind of like play around with it. Scribble on one side. When you're doing it, don't lift the pen and just keep scribbling like this. And now I lost that super, super duper sharp. And I have slightly flat. I mean, I'm sure the camera is not going to pick it up, but I do have that slightly flat side. All right. And so I'm going to do the same to my jumbo. And maybe this one, you can see it much better. So I'm just going to scribble. See how black the 8B is? That's a softened black. Now maybe this one you'll be able to pick it up. Maybe not yet. There you go. I have a slightly slanted. See that? That's what we want. All right. Here we go. It's too bright. Let's adjust the light. Is this much better? Hold on. All right, so here we go. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Okay. You're very welcome. All right. So now that I've adjusted my pencil, I was just scribbling, and now maybe you can see a little bit of that angled. You know, we want that angled. And I wanted to show you, I pulled in one of my calligraphy pens from Faber-Castell. This is the Pitt Artist pen. So basically what I want is to have like a 45-degree angle like this, a line. But of course, we cannot get that sharp edge like a marker would have. And that's what scribbling did to my pencil. That's the whole point of that, is to just have a slightly slanted part on the tip of the pencil. Now, these are the basic strokes when it comes to a brush lettering. We have an upstroke, and this is when you are writing away from your body. This is when you do your upstroke. And this is also where you apply a very, very light pressure. So using a pencil, I would normally use a brush pen, but a brush pen this is a wonderful tool, but it's also very very sensitive, especially if you're still new to this and you're trying to practice how much pressure you want to apply. So your brush pen can get a lot of beating. I mean, literally, because you're going to be practicing your hoops, your loops, and your pressure, upstroke, your downstroke, and all that. Of course, you cannot get this thick of a stroke using a pencil. But what we want to do is practice the amount of pressure and learning when to switch from the light to the heavy. And when you're using a pencil, believe it or not, you can do that, especially if you're using a softer graphite. An 8B in jumbo is the best one to use if you're going to practice. This is the 8B. And so if I do upstroke, light pressure, and apply a little bit of pressure, then you'll be able to see that. I'll zoom in just a little bit more so you guys can see. Like that. This. Like that. Hey, Marge, I know that this is not available, but as you can see here, you can take a screenshot of this one, or when the replay is already uploaded, you can take a screenshot of this. And also we're going to go through it one by one so I can share them with you. So upstroke, again, is every time you would write away from your body or going up. So given the word up, going up is light, right? Up is light. And every time you would do your downstroke or writing towards your body, this is when you're going to apply some pressure. Pressure going down. So again, upstroke is light. Downstroke is heavy pressure. All right. Now, next is an overturn. And this is where you're going to see in the middle is where you're going to use, where you're going to apply the switch from your upstroke, from the light to downstroke to heavy. And this is why it's very important, I think, to practice the basic strokes, is that you can really get the hang of switching from the light to heavy. And in the very beginning, you might have to repeat it in your head over and over: light, upstroke, light, downstroke, heavy, upstroke, light, downstroke, heavy. So let's do the overturn. This is like a frown or an upside down smile: light and then heavy. Again, light and then heavy. Right? So that is an overturn. It's kind of like a mountain: light and then heavy. Right, next is an underturn. This time we're going to do the opposite. We're going to apply heavy pressure first and then go easy on the pressure as we go up. So apply pressure and ease up on the pressure when you go in the middle, and then go lighter going up. Okay, so apply a little bit of pressure, ease up, and then light pressure going up. So this is your underturn, or kind of like your smiley. All right, the next is a compound curve. It's kind of like a letter N to me when I look at it. So it's kind of like a letter N, but not really, of course. So we have a little bit of a heavy pressure in the very beginning, or I'd like to call it also as your entrance stroke, because this is the beginning. Heavy, go light, heavy, and then go light. So this is like almost a combination of your overturn and finishing up with an underturn. Right? So let's do that again. A little bit of pressure, light going up, pressure going down, and then light going up. All right. So that is a compound curve. Next one is an oval. Pressure going down, ease up, go light while you go up. Let's try that again. Heavy and then light. When you try to go light with the pencil, you might also want to concentrate on using the tip of your pencil. Heavy and then concentrate and then going up very lightly. But I think using a pencil when practicing your lettering is really, I think, the best tool to practice your switching from the light to heavy pressure, because that's the trickiest part of all. Now, I just want to show you an example if I'm going to use a brush pen. If I'm going to do the compound curve with the brush pen, I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure and then might use the tip going light and then heavy and then going light again. I'm going to try that again. Pressure. So as you can see, when you're using a brush pen, you can get a much thicker stroke depending on how much pressure you apply. Notice how this one is thinner than the one where I really applied pressure. But then because you're using a brush pen and it's a much more flexible, that's how you can create a much thicker stroke. But when we're using a pencil, of course, it's going to be limited, the amount of thickness of stroke we're going to get. No matter how much pressure we apply, it's just going to depend on how big or how thick the nib or the lead of the pencil is. See? Pressure and light. But this is the best way that you can practice that heavy and then light, heavy and then light. All right. Okay. The next one is ascending. I'm showing this to you, the basic strokes, because I want to show you that when you're drawing your letters, it's all about doing one stroke at a time. I think once you see that concept, you're going to understand, you're going to much easier understand that, okay, I'm not just writing, I am actually drawing. So this next stroke is called the ascending, or you can see the letter H has that, right? Letter B would have it. The next one is descending. So you have heavy going down and then lighter to do the loop. With the ascending, I started in the middle with the downstroke, with the upstroke, I apologize, the upstroke with the light and then downstroke heavy. The O is called the oval. Right? So this one is ascending. And the letter J is called descending. So when you're doing a crossbar or a horizontal line, for example, for your letter T, so you'll do a downstroke first with heavy. Every time you would write in horizontal, it would always be a thin stroke also, or a light stroke. So if it's an F, it would be a light stroke as well. So these strokes are called your crossbars. All right. Now, to show you what I meant about learning how to do everything one stroke at a time. So let's start with the ascending, okay? I'm going to go on the back so we don't get confused with all the use this paper. So I'm going to start with the ascending, light, and then heavy, that. plus an overturn equals to a letter H. Okay, let's start with an oval plus a downstroke with an exit stroke like that. Or you can also do it just like a downstroke plane. This is going to be your letter A. See how everything is just one stroke at a time. Let's try a letter M. A downstroke, an underturn. An overturn and an overturn. All right. I wasn't meaning on making it ham. I just realized it's ham, H-A-M. Maybe I'm subconsciously hungry and that's why. All right, here we go. So see, everything is just one stroke at a time. So if I am going to hand letter the word ham, since it's ham now, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to do this, H. Now I'm always...
Sorry to interrupt. I don't know if no, it's not just me. So your screen went black.
Oh, my screen went black. Here we go. We don't know what happened, but we're going to fix it. Hold on one second.
Well, okay, it gives everyone a little chance to catch up.
Yes. Catch up with the basic strokes while we're fixing this. Let's see.
And you're back. Also, there is a very nice comment in there in the chat for you. So Ria says, let me tell you, you are so good before you continue.
Oh, Ria, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I'm going to fix the other camera just in case we get something wrong here. I want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So I'm going to just fix this one. Save that just in case I'm ready. We won't have the same issue, but just in case we got it. All right, here we go. Let's continue with our word ham. Perfect. All right, and I just want to add, guys, when it comes to lettering, I think it's really important to understand as well that it takes some time. You might not get it right away. It might not turn out perfect, but I think with a little bit of consistency every day, you're going to see that growth and that change. And may I add that you should always keep a journal or one notebook, no matter how simple it is, like a composition notebook, and choose a place where you want to practice. And then you can really see your progress and not compare your progress with anybody else that is doing it, but just yours. Does that make sense? M is hard. Yes, it is hard. It's very, I think it's a good letter to practice. Letter M, letter O, letter W is also a good word to practice. Now I want to show you see how the letter, each letter has this almost like an upstroke, a little upstroke. You can use this stroke, this little one, as an entrance or an exit stroke. So for example, you want to write the word ham, say ham. And if you're going to connect it, you don't want to end with that letter H. You always want to add a little bit of that, right? So I think that's important. Letter A, same with the letter A, you want to add a little bit of that stroke. And you're using this as your entrance, your exit, and also a connecting. Okay, so now we're going to do letter per letter so you guys can see. Now, we all write our letters very differently. And so I will share with you how I personally write my letters. I'm going to write them in a capital and also small, and I'll give you another variation how I like to write them as well. So I'm going to start with the letter A. Here we go. Sometimes I like my A to look like this. Like that. Sometimes I turn my small letter into a capital. So this is a small letter, but just bigger. And I would just write my letter A like this. Here we go, letter B. It's almost just like a downstroke, upstroke, down. Notice the variation of shade, okay? So some part of it is lighter. When you see a lighter part, that's the part where I went light with my pressure. And when you see a really dark spot or dark area, that means that is the area where I applied heavier pressure. Sometimes I like to do my letter B's like this too. Connect it, stop in there, and then add another one like that. Okay, let's go back a little bit for that letter M so you guys can see. The letter M, I start with a downstroke. So sometimes it depends. I almost want to start with this letter like this. You know, in real life, I would always add this loop like that. And then I go upstroke and then downstroke, and then upstroke and then downstroke again. Does that make sense? So again, let's do that. Because if I'm going to write a letter M and it's the first letter of the word, I don't think I would ever write it this way. I would normally use a letter M like this. So kind of like a downstroke and an upstroke and a downstroke. Let's do that again. Downstroke, slightly heavy, upstroke light, downstroke heavy. Right? And then I go up with my overturn, first overturn, and then a second overturn with a longer exit like that. Exit stroke. All right. Okay, so we're going to go letter per letter, okay? And we're going to go slightly faster because, you know, time is limited, but I will show you all the letters. All right, so that's a letter B. And the way I would flourish, now flourishing is a whole different story, and we're going to create a class just for flourishing. And so how I would normally flourish is that if this is the letter B and a small letter, I would just overextend my stroke like this and overlap like that. So it's still like the ascending, but instead of starting here, I overlap the strokes like this. Notice the difference from this one to this one. So it's almost the beginning of a letter L. Let's start that. Just like that. And I would start adding my oval. And then I would add a loop in there. Right, now let's go with the letter C. Letter C is nothing fancy. I would just normally would really use this letter C right here. Now, if I want to have some type of fancy letter C, a more flourished one, it's a bit more complicated, but I will show you. Again, it's almost kind of like, let me grab my eraser. So let's stick with this stroke right here so we don't get confused. So I'll start with that stroke, but longer than that. The reason why I don't like using this is because it's so easily, you can easily read it as a letter E. And that's what I'm saying about flourishing is a whole different story, because I think it's important that when you're doing hand lettering, I understand that flourish is pretty, having extra strokes here and there is pretty, but can you read it? That's the thing that matters most to me, is that how can you show it to your audience and make your audience understand what your message is, right? Because if I do this as a letter C, I can easily see I can easily see a letter E in here. So I don't usually do it. If I'm going to start and flourish the letter C, I start with the basic letter C first, like this. And I would just add a little tiny loop. I want to show you this one. So it's kind of like here, and then I go up like this, right? Notice how the difference of this letter C to this letter C. This one looked like a letter E, and this one you can clearly see that that is a letter C flourished with some extra pretty strokes. I hope that I'm making sense here. Now, when I write a letter C in a small letter, then it's just a letter C like that. I would just normally flourish in the end of my letter, the first letter and the end letter. That's 90% the case. Also, when I have a descending, kind of like a small g, a small j, and all that. And I'll show you that also. Right. So now I'm going to do the letter D. The letter D, kind of like how I started the letter B, is just with a downstroke. And I start adding the loop. It's almost the beginning of an oval. Now I would also be careful of this one. Look at this. You don't want to have too much space and not enough space, because if I have a much longer stroke and a shorter loop in there, it can look like a letter P. See? So you want to make sure that your audience can read it as a letter D. So you close this one because this is the most important part. Now I also like writing or drawing the letter D kind of like the letter B. See how the similarities between that one and this one? I'll do that again. It's kind of like writing a letter L. Start with this stroke, heavy, go light, go up and then down. Cindy, yes, they cannot. They can't read cursive anymore. It's very sad sometimes. Sometimes I like to add some of those too, but it gets confusing. I mean, sometimes it's hard to read it as it is. And when you start adding too much flourishing, it just gets a little confusing. Okay, so now with the small letter D, I start with an oval, right? and then just that. So it's almost just like a ascending, but a longer one. The stretch is longer. You can also just make a regular ascending, just like this. All right, and so letter D, if you want letter D like this, I'm going to show you a little bit of just, whoop, I don't like that at all. Why do I not like this? Because look at the loop here. It's kind of like lap-sided. And also I overlapped where that oval is. So those are the little things that you want to be careful about. But I think it's important to show that you can easily make mistakes. Even though I've been doing this for a very long time, it's still not perfect. You know, there's always room to grow and things to adjust and improve on. Right, so letter D, I can also do a letter D like maybe a much longer exit stroke, like that. But again, the more you experiment with it, the more you're going to find out better ways to improve your letterings or your art in general. All right, so A, B, C, D, E. And I hope I'm not the only one who has to sing it every single time I have to do the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E. Now let's do letter E. All right, the basic letter E would look like this. Like with the letter C, you can also add that loop on top, just like that. If you would try to do this with this stroke right away, look how difficult that would be. I have to go do this, and that, and that. Now, if you're someone that's a beginner, you might want to start with just the letter E first, and then add your loop on top. All right. Now, I also love mixing my capitals, my print to the scripts. And I think that's what one thing that I have developed along the way. The more I practice, I find out things that I like more, and it makes it mine. It makes it my art. And so those are the little things that you're going to discover too. Maybe you like to mix your small letters and your capitals. No one's going to judge you. So I think I always like to say, keep doing you. Now with this one, remember what we did with the letter E, with the letter C earlier? This is my entrance stroke here. It's a little bit extra, but I think you can do it. So stretch and horizontal, going down, going down. But just two different styles that I want to show you. I mean, actually three, because you have this one. And then a small letter E. This one, there's nothing fancy I can do about it. So we're going to stick with the letter E like that. Okay, letter F. I will be honest with you. I would normally do my letter F in this serif style. I rarely do it in this style. Like that. My father, before, I think he would write it like this. I think it's too confusing to me. It's almost like a J and a letter L. It's just a whole lot of confusion there. So if you want to keep it simple, you want to do a horizontal crossbar, a downstroke with a loop, another crossbar, and you have a letter F. Right? So we have, I don't like that. So we have this, this, this. What is the difference from this one to this one? Now, this one has a little bit of that loop in there, and you can try that. Do it, loop, and go down. See how adding just a slight loop in there instead of a clean line makes difference. Okay, so the pressure would be very light pressure. And then this is where you're going to add your downstroke or your heavy pressure and then go light again. So just remember, whenever you go down, you're going to go heavier on your pressure. Whenever you go up, you will ease up on your pressure. And then horizontal is just a very light pressure as well. Now for the small letter F, I would do it like this. If you want to play around with your letter F, play around with the size of your hoops like that. I'll show you. So you have a stretched one, you have a shorter one. And how I like to play around too is my entrance stroke. Sometimes I like to go down, or sometimes I like to go like this. You want to make sure you play around with your size as well. Look at that. I'll do this one again. Downstroke, heavier. I just overlapped it and I went up like that. And that's letter F. And then now let's go with the letter G. Again, G is, I think this is my favorite way of doing my G. It's almost like an oval, but it's like an open oval. Remember when we do our oval, it's close. This one is like a letter C, almost like a letter C in the beginning. C. And I added my downstroke, or actually this is my descending. So if you want to see this in basic strokes, you want to do the oval and you're descending, right? It's almost like an O and a J. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to close my oval, and I'm going to start adding my descending and overlap the loop and go up. Right? So again, oval. Even if you want to close the oval, it's still going to look so pretty. Just like that. But how I would normally draw my letter G is this way. Thank you so much, Norma. Thank you. All right, now let's do a letter H. Letter H, we'll start with a downstroke with a little bit of an exit stroke like that. Another downstroke. And then instead of just like this, you're going to play around with your crossbars. Let's do that again. Maybe you can do a loop like this, kind of like that. Or you want to go in the middle and overlapping also on the other side. So there's just many different variations. This is where you're going to really use up your imagination. And the more you practice, the more you're going to come up with more ideas. Like here, I have two downstrokes. The bottom, the very end of the second downstroke, I'm going to go from here to here, go up, make a loop, and then go like that, right? So I'm going to go up and go like that. So it's different. You decide. All right, letter H, just an ascending and underturn. The result is a letter H, and we practiced that earlier. Oh my goodness, it died again. I told you guys. So let me switch to the other camera. All right, and then I'm gonna flip it so you guys can see it. There we go. So that's the letter H. Now we have letter I. So letter I think this one, I really write this one as like almost like a print, but I just make the loops just slightly curving. Now, if you're going to do this in cursive, I think this is how people do their letter I's. I always get confused I's with a J, but the difference with the J would be a much bigger loop down there. That's why I like to do my I like this. It's more recognizable. Yes, this is the letter I. Zoom that in. Okay. So I, a small I, always just like this. I don't do anything fancy. If I'm going to do anything fancy with my letter I, just a stretch like this and a downstroke and just like that. For my letter J, I go up and down heavy and then just like that. So almost look like my I too, right? That's the more you write the letters or you draw the letters, let me correct myself, the more you draw your letters, you're going to realize that these are just the same strokes over and over again done differently. So again, letter J, you can do J, it's like that. To me, this almost looked like letter L also. So if I'm going to write my J, I'm going to like this. I'll just do that. J. Just a descending for the letter J. If I'll make it fancy, I'll do it like how I did my letter I in here. Stretched crossbar and just a regular descending. Now let's do a letter K. Exactly. It looks like a letter T too. You're correct. All right. So let's do a letter K. This one you want to do a downstroke like that. And then a downstroke going down. And then another downstroke going down. If you want to make it slightly fancy, you just add a little bit of loop like this. I always want to start with my full letter first before I add all my flourishes. For example, this one, you just add a little bit like that. I want to add a little bit more here. And that's why using a pencil is always so easy. You can always erase and say, you know what? I think I made that a little bit smaller. I want to make it slightly larger than that, but that's how you can improve on things. So letter K. You can also play around with the hoop in the middle. This one is a clean cut. Now, if we want to play around with that, kind of like with the letter B, you make this one just like that. I just added just like a little tiny loop in the middle. Let me know which one you like better. I think I like this one better. K. And then for the small letter K, I just do that. Go up and down. Let's do that. Ascending. Almost like an oval. And then down. And then up. So this is how you can also play around. Notice how this one looped down a little bit more like this. You can also just make it like the K, the capital, but adjust it down below. Right. Now for the letter L, I'm going to show you why this reminds me of the letter L, because how I would normally write it or draw it is just like that. The difference is this one is almost like scooping from the down and then going up. This one, I started with downstroke, up, down, up, and then horizontal, and then up again. Now you can make it like this also, where you go up, down, and your regular loop. I love L because my name is Slay, so I like to play around with this letter. You can also just use that or play around with the size of your hoops like this, where it's maybe bigger. See how notice just little bit changes make a difference. So also be careful with those little bit things, because those are the things also that may throw you off a little bit, because just a slight change, you're like, you know what? I don't really like that. For some reason, I don't like it, because small change can make a big impact. And that's why a small change can also overwhelm you and then frustrate you as well. So there's like pros and cons in that one. Yay, Debbie. A letter L. All right. Christy, screenshot for the practice letters. I am going to, I think I have that in the worksheet. We have each letter in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a screenshot of the sample letters, actually, a picture of the sample letters, and then we'll have this on Faber-Castell's blog. So I'll send it to the Faber-Castell team so we can have that available for you guys. So LM, now for the letter L. I think this is almost just like my ascending one, because look how very simple that is. So you can overlap it just like that. You can do the opposite just like that, but almost really very simple. If I want to make it a little fancy, I might do it like the letter J, where there's like a horizontal thing going on in here, like a longer one, a stretched one, and just like that. Right now, the letter M. I showed the letter M earlier, but we're going to do it again. A downstroke, and just that. Here we go. Up like this, and up and like that. You can also do this M, up, down, up, light, heavy, down. So two very pretty M's. Small letter M. It's just like that. Maybe you can stretch the loop, but still, it's always going to have those two humps. Letter M. For the letter N, same, almost like this too. That. Just like this. Or like this one. Just like this. I think how I did it is that I always tilt my paper to the left. Notice how my paper is not straight like this. It's always tilted to my left. Now, because I'm right-handed, if you are left-handed, it might be different for you. You might have to tilt it to your right instead of to your left. But these are some of the basic practice that I think I have discovered that works very well for me. Now, consistency when it comes to the slant, you can always get like a workbook that has those slanted. I think it was like kind of like a composition notebook, but it actually has those slant. But I think once you have, just keep practicing. I mean, there's really no better answer but to say practice. I think it's. I mean, I'm so cliche, but That's really is the only way to get better at it. And then you're going to see it. For example, I'm going to write a word. Let's say that I'm going to finish letter N first. Okay. And I'll start with an O. O, very simple, like an oval, but I add a loop in here like this. This is where I play around with the letter O. Sometimes I make it super big, just like that, or smaller like that, or sometimes without it. And just add a connecting stroke. All right. Just like that. Now letter P, a downstroke. And like this. The way I play around with the P would be maybe to add something in here and connect it. But that's the only way I play around with the P. Or maybe P. Yeah, that's really is. Maybe add just a little bit in there, but pretty much that's the letter P. Small p would be the same way, downstroke, and then an oval, and then a connecting line. Or stretched one, and the letter P, same thing. But when you're connecting letters, if you're composing a word, you cannot put that in between each letter to compose your word. Does that make sense? So you would normally add an entrance stroke or an exit stroke in the beginning of your letter and then the end of the letter. So the beginning letter and the end letter of your word. So LMNOP, sorry, guys. So it's almost like a number 2. See this Q? It's like that. So I would normally just do an oval. Again, this is my personal preference. So when I'm lettering like this, I'm not going to write queen like this. I don't know when's the last time I used this letter Q. I think I would normally just do an oval and play around with this loop down here. And then for the letter Q, it's just an oval with the, like this, maybe add a little bit of that. So queen, like that. Like that. So here's our letter H to letter Q. Right. This was our first one. If you guys just want to take a screenshot. Yeah, we're going to go to that attaching. So Q, QR. I'm going to go fast now so we can finish. I don't want to leave you guys hanging with just a couple more letters. Letter R. That. Again, playing around with how much loop you want in the middle. Loop also here. Like that. But that's where I play around with my letter R. Now for the letter S. Like that. Or I would also do it in the print way, but just add some fancy loops, just like this. Like that. Now, when you're connecting your letters, I think this is one of the thing that we need to talk about is that because it's easy to show you guys when it's an individual letter like this, but connecting is another whole different story. So you've seen me earlier, like what I've mentioned, you want to add a little bit of that flicking, and that is your connecting stroke. This is my letter U. see, if I made this letter U and I'm writing the word umbrella, this is going to be unreadable if I add the letter M in here. Does that make sense? Now, if I'm writing it, if I'm drawing the letter individually, I can write this little loop over here. But in reality is, if I'm going to write the word umbrella, I'm only going to add this connecting line right here. The letter T, I'm going to add this one right here. But if my last word, say last, and it starts and it ends with the letter T, I might want to add a little bit of that fancy loop right there or a fancy stroke right there. But you don't want to add that when connecting a word, when connecting letters to form a word. A letter V, like that. Really, this one is super simple. I don't play around with this, maybe only with the direction of this. So I can do it like this, like that, or like that. Inward or to the left or to the right. That's the only way I play around with the letter V. Now W is kind of like letter M, but backwards. So you have an understroke instead of an underturn instead of overturn. Play around with the middle part. You want to add a hoop in there. See the difference from this one to this one. With a small one, I would normally just do it this way. You can also, kind of like what we did with the letter V, do you want it facing to the left or to the right? So going here or going here. Marcella, this is the Faber-Castell. This is the Castell 9000 Jumbo, and it's an 8B. Now letter X. That's how I started with my letter X. And then from down, going up. Let's do that again. Like this. From the bottom, going up. And even with a small X, it's the same way. Like that. Letter Y. Like that. I only play around with my letter Y is that sometimes this is much bigger, sometimes it's smaller. So with my letter Y, like this, the difference of this one to this one, right? Now letter Z, like this. Sometimes I first add that, and then I add this, and then I add the loop, kind of like with the letter E's that we did earlier. Right, so let's just create one word so I can show you guys how to connect letters. Let's write the word love, and I'm going to draw them individually first. L-O. Again, if I am drawing these letters individually, this is how I'm going to do it. But how can we connect them, right? So I'm going to start with my letter L. Now it's good. This is where the end strokes or the entrance strokes matter. Actually, this one is called the connecting. So your ending, the way you end your letters is going to matter a lot because this is going to be the distance from one letter to the other. So I'll do my letter O. So we almost have an equal amount of distance in between each letter. Now, if I made this one much longer, and this one just tight, See the distance from the L to the O? We don't want that. So we want equal amount of distance in between each letter. So if you want to go long, then you want to go have a stretched letters. And there's nothing wrong with that. But still an amount equal of space in between each letter. If you want much stretcher than that, I think it's okay. So notice how my connecting lines are just, that's where it varies, the connecting each letter. It's almost like a bridge. So we can make it shorter. As long as you have an equal amount of space in between each letter when connecting them. So I hope that really, always I love teaching hand lettering, but it can get a little confusing because I really want to get into every simple details because I think it's so important that you guys would see that. I think just as simple as the variation of each letter. There's a whole lot more. We can get into that. And then the flourishing, so if there's anything that you'd like to learn more about lettering, please do send us an email, visit Faber-Castell's website, send us an email through there, or reach us on social media and just send us a comment. Which class would you like to see more? But again, as always, would like to thank everybody for joining in today. I apologize for technology. It's not being friendly today, but we made it through. Please don't forget to use the hashtag #MakeItWithMichaels if you lettered along with me today, and also show Faber-Castell some love. You can use the hashtag Faber-Castell and follow us all over social media. Again, my name is Lay Ralston. I'm also known as Mommy Lay. If you have any further questions, you can also reach out to me on social media. I'd be more than happy to help. We have another class, not next week, but on April 5th, next Wednesday, we'll be drawing and illustrating a cute Easter bunny. So I hope you'll be able to join in again. As always, stay creative, guys, and stay happy. I'll see you sometime again soon. Bye, everybody. Have a great, wonderful evening. Thank you so much. Bye.